Hey guys, this week I'm going to be showing you how I made this wooden spatula using the lathe. Stick around. Hello and welcome to this week's edition of BS with AJ. As I said before, this week I'm going to be showing you how I made this wooden spatula using the lathe. Now we're mainly using the lathe to get the handle portion of this done because it's all round. We will be shaping the outside of our spatula head here, but then we'll have to be taking it over to the bandsaw to cut down the profile, and then we'll sand it all down with a belt sander. So I do like to link all the tools and materials that I use in the description below in case you haven't noticed that in my other videos. So be sure and check that out if you're looking for a new tool or you see something you like that I use. I try to get the same model and everything like that put in there at least as close as I can get it. Now, as far as wood goes, I don't normally link that because I buy all my lumber from the local sawmill. I definitely suggest going and finding a local sawmill. You may not have one very close to you. I don't know where you live, but if you have one close, one, it's cheaper to get your lumber from there, and two, it's also going to be helping out a local business. And I always think that's a good idea to do that. We're going to be making this out of a rough sawn piece of ash. So we got it directly from the sawmill. It's not planed down or anything like that. We just cut out the shape to put it directly onto the lathe and started turning it. Ash is a really good type of wood to use for spatulas and other kitchen utensils because it's a really tough wood. It's going to be really durable. It's going to last a lot longer. But anyway, before we get started on this, be sure to like, share, and subscribe, and consider supporting BS with AJ on Patreon so we can do bigger and better projects for you guys. Also, if you have any questions or comments, be sure to leave those down in the comments section below. And don't forget to hit that notification bell so you know when I post new videos. Alright, let's go ahead and get started, guys. Alright guys, this week we're going to be making a wooden spatula. For this project, we're going to be using a rough sawn piece of ash. So the first thing I did was, as you see here, I cut me a piece that was about the length of this spatula that I already have. And I went ahead and used that as a template. I've got 4 of them out of this one block. So we're going to go ahead and take it to the bandsaw and cut out these 4 patterns here, and then we're going to start by turning all this and turning the handle round. Alright, our next step, we're going to go ahead and mark the center of both ends here, so that way when we chuck it up in the lathe, we know exactly where our center point is. So we're going to do that by taking this square and just lining it up, the corners, and we're going to use a pencil or a pen, whatever you have handy. I've got a pen in my pocket, so that's what I'm going to use. Alright. Just like that. So that gives us the center of this, and we'll do the same thing on both sides of all of these, and then we'll go ahead and put it on the lathe. Alright, we've got a chuck between centers here. So the main thing that we're going to be using as far as tools, we have a 1-inch roughing gouge here. We have a 1/2-inch spindle gouge. We're going to be using this flat scraper here. Not sure the actual proper name of that one. And we're going to be using a real small, thin parting tool. Alright, you do want to stop frequently to make sure that you're actually rounding over all the edges. Up here on the actual spatula part here, I've got it fairly well rounded. I need to work a little bit more on that tip. But down here is where I need to start working some more. And I want to get this done a little bit before I do this whole handle here because we're going to be spinning that down to about 1/2 inch or a little bit over. So we're going to go ahead and do this while it's good and stable. And then we're going to come over here and actually get that down to the size we need it and then make it flow real nice and smooth. So we'll go ahead and finish doing this just a little bit more here. So now you can tell it's completely round. So now what we're going to do is we're going to take our other spoon, just because this is the one I'm trying to have them all fairly match here. So I'm going to come up probably about 3/8 of an inch or so, because that hole is going to be sticking in here a little ways. So we're going to come up just so that way when we go to part it off, we don't have that hole in the handle. And then I've got this pattern here. It's about, I want to say about a 1/2 inch gap from the first mark to the second mark. And then probably about 3/8 of an inch or so to that mark there. So now we're going to turn our speed down, and where we have these marks right here, I don't know how well you can see them, we're going to go ahead and take our pencil or pen or whatever it is you're using. We're going to turn it at a slow speed here, slower speed. And we're going to just go ahead and take our pen, and you'll see it get darker as it goes all the way around. Alright, so now I'm going to turn the speed back up, and when I do that, I'm going to be working from this mark all the way down to the end here, trying to get that down to about a 1/2 inch, or a little bit over actually. I'm going to go just a little over, so that way when I sand it down, it doesn't go past a 1/2 inch. Now I've got this set of calipers right here set at a 1/2 inch, so that way you can just set it, do a little bit work, and set it up here and see how close you are. So as you can see here, it's off quite a ways still, so we got a long way to go up on this area. So let's go ahead and get started on that. Now that we have the handle part done, it's pretty well smooth. We'll straighten that out with a little bit of sandpaper here in just a minute. But we're going to come back over this and make sure we have a nice smooth taper all the way down and get rid of that little bump right here. So we're going to go back to our roughing gouge here, because it's quicker, it's easier, and I'm better at using that anyway. Now what we're going to do is leave it at that same speed, and we're going to grab a handful of the sawdust here. There's fairly large chunks here. And what we're going to do is just kind of put it up here and apply just a little bit of pressure and let that heat kind of work its way on there. And it kind of polishes it just a little bit. Let's zoom in and see that now. Ooh, focus. As you can see, it kind of put a little bit of a shine on there. But you do want to be very careful when you're doing this, especially up towards the head of your spatula here. Let me zoom out. Oop, wrong way. Especially up here, because as you're moving up here, you have these two flat spots here. And as you're going that fast, if you put your finger in the wrong spot, you could very easily break a finger. So you want to make sure you leave your fingers out kind of wide while you're doing this, and don't get too close here. Or, you know, if you don't feel comfortable, don't do it at all. I mean, that's fine too. Now, the last step we're going to do is I've got a little rag here, and I've got just a little bit of mineral oil I'm going to put on here. Just a little bit. It don't take much. Alright, what we're going to do now, I've got just a little bit on this rag here. I don't know if you can see just how much. It's very little. And we're going to turn this back on at that same speed. And we're just going to lightly apply this all the way through here, the same spots that we just did. All right, now the last thing we're going to do is part this off right down here. So we're going to get our tool rest put back on here. Make sure we're not going to hit anything here. Make sure we're down at the right angle. And we're going to take our thin parting tool, wherever I put it. There we go. We're going to take our thin parting tool and part it off right back here. Now, I'm going to turn the speed up high again so that way this cuts faster, but you don't want to go all the way through. You want to leave about a 1/4 inch, maybe a little bit more, so that way, whenever you go to do this, you'll turn your machine back off, and I'm going to use this little pull saw, and I'm going to finish cutting it off that way. Because otherwise, you're going to get tear out in the bottom, and you're going to have to sand it a lot more to fix that. Also, it could end up coming off the lathe and go flying one way or the other, and that's obviously pretty dangerous. So let's go ahead and part this off now. I don't know how well you can see this spot right here, but I've got about a 1/4 inch left. So now what we're going to do is we're going to let a little bit of pressure off here. Get the tool rest out of the way. We're just going to set it right here. Flush up against your piece. Easy. And just like it. See, that way you don't have that much tear out at all. You just kind of sand that down and smooth out our edge right down here. So now we're going to go ahead and take this back to the bandsaw. We're going to determine our center point. We'll mark it out. And then we're going to go ahead and mark out how big or how wide our spatula needs to be. And we'll go ahead and cut that all the way up to our handle here, and then we'll start sanding it down. Alright guys, we're back at the bandsaw here. We're about to cut these out. Now I went ahead and marked them here. I want them to be about 3/8 of an inch deep, but we're going to do that at first, and we're going to take it over to the belt sander and sand it down and kind of put a taper on it after we get done with the bandsaw, but this will get us pretty close. So what I did was I took a small square and I marked it at 5/16 of an inch, since this is 1 inch rough cut lumber, and I went ahead and put a mark on each side, and then I marked them here on the top here too, so that way I can start my blade straight. So we're going to go ahead and cut those off real quick. And we're going to take it over to the belt sander and start shaping it a little more. Alright guys, now to finish this project, we're going to go ahead and add some mineral oil and put it all over this. We're going to put a pretty thick layer on there, set it to let it soak in for a few minutes, and then we're going to come back and wipe off the excess. This is a food safe finish. The only reason I'm wearing gloves is because it's kind of messy, and I'm doing about 12 of these, so I'm going to have a lot of oil all over the place. But anyway,
You don't have to wear gloves when you're doing this. It's just easier cleanup. So what we're going to do is we're going to put this stuff on here. We're going to let it soak in for a couple of minutes, and we're going to come back with a paper towel and wipe off the excess and set it down to dry.
Alright guys, well here's our final product. I hope you enjoyed this week's video. Be sure to like, share, and subscribe, and consider supporting BS with AJ on Patreon so we can do bigger and better projects for you guys. And I'll see you next week.